Stop rewatching shows. Just a quick editor's note, I really wanted to have this entire video done before Christmas. By the time it was a few days before Christmas, I had hours of footage still to do, so I decided I really need to get something out by the end of the year. So this video is going to go over just the first episode of Neon Genesis Evangelion and why it's the exception to my no rewatching rule that I'm explaining now. You've already seen it, it's a waste of time. It's not going to be any different just because you put it on again. There's got to be something else, something interesting for you to go watch instead. Just stop rewatching shows. This is something that I came up with in college. I learned that this was a rule that I needed to have in my life when streaming services started getting more and more popular and everyone was bragging about how many times they had rewatched The Office or rewatched Friends, and those can be fine shows. You can enjoy those shows, but the idea of watching them over and over and over again would just sounded nauseating to me. No matter how many times you put on The Office, it's gonna be the same show every single time you watch it. And so I have a rule that I don't rewatch shows. As with any rule, there are exceptions. And the first one's really easy. Holiday films. You better believe that when Halloween and Christmas roll around, we're going to be putting on Charlie Brown, we're going to be putting on Hocus Pocus, we're going to be watching all the Rankin Bass movies, and we're not just going to watch them though. We're going to be sitting down with family, with friends, we're going to be talking about what these series mean to us, what these shows mean to us, and we're going to be engaging with each other. The movie is more of a conduit for having good conversation with friends and family around the holidays. So I don't quite count that as a rewatch in the same way that somebody who sits down to watch a series fully through again would be rewatching that series. The second exception is when there's a series that you really, really like and you need to show somebody else, and you are going to act like a Sherpa, leading them up the mountain of whatever this media is. Whether it's a long-running series, a short film, whatever it is, you're going to be sitting there watching it with this other person, giving them some guiding information if they need it to get them to enjoy the series the same way that you do. And again, I don't think you're really there to watch the series again. You're actually there to see somebody else watching the series for the first time and to see the excitement and enjoyment on their face. So even that second exception is you're not really rewatching anything. And the third exception, and the reason that I rewatch Neon Genesis Evangelion over and over again, and the reason that I'm making this video series, is when a piece of media treats its characters, treats its plot with such care that every time you encounter new information or a new period in your life, that you're able to watch the series and get some new information out of it that you didn't notice before. I'm only going to be talking about Neon Genesis Evangelion, the original 26-episode series with the movie End of Evangelion. I'm very, very glad that there are people that enjoy the Rebuild series, but for me, the Rebuild series disrespects the original in a way that I don't think a lot of people have talked about yet. The Rebuilds take a turn and they lose all of their stakes. And that brings me to the reason that I'm making this video series. Today, Evangelion is a thing you just can't escape as an anime fan. Even if you haven't seen it, have at least seen the characters, the robots, some amount of the plot. You've heard getting the robot Shinji, like there's memes. You're familiar at some level with the series. But I intend to take you back. I'm going to take you through what it was like to watch Evangelion for the very first time, knowing nothing about the series and not having the internet to have spoiled everything for me already. We didn't have the memes, we didn't have the images, we didn't have the models of the robot, we had nothing. And this first viewing starts before 2000. Back when you had to go to a local video store to watch anime. And I don't mean a Blockbuster, I mean a mom and pop shop where you had to find the international animation section and then just roll the dice as to if the robot on the cover was going to be a cool show that you were going to enjoy or not. And so we're going to go back to when we rented that VHS of Evangelion for the very first time, put it into our VCR, and the thoughts and the questions. In fact, we're gonna track some of the questions and some of the things that come up throughout the series that keep you hooked. You know, the little mysteries that get thrown at us to see, why are we still watching? What are we still trying to figure out? What have we figured out as we go through the series for the very first time? All right, now is the final moment for you to watch Neon Genesis Evangelion on your own without me. If you're still here, let's pop it in, grab a drink, kanpai. All right, to start with, we have one of the most iconic intros in all of anime. But at the time, we didn't know. We just thought it was fun. You just listen to this bop as a kid. Just I didn't speak Japanese. I didn't know what they were saying. We didn't have subtitles during the song. And at the time with anime, we were used to the songs being translated and turned into dragon, fight the dragon. You know, we didn't have the original Japanese music a lot of the time. So listening to a Japanese intro was just fun. What's really cool about the way this intro is lined up is that you will get a ton of spoilers by just analyzing this intro, but the way it's cut and the speed at which stuff comes by, you won't get spoiled. I mean, you'll see characters, sure, and if you count seeing characters as a spoiler, then I mean, I guess you've been spoiled, but you won't really be paying too much attention to every little detail of this intro to the point where you're gonna understand the plot of the series. This whole intro is just amazing. And after that intro, we get the title card that states that the current year is 2015, which back in 2000, that was a cool thing to see, but now we just laugh at the fact that it was 10 years ago. After laughing at the year, we get to see a bunch of crumbled buildings and some sort of giant humanoids swimming through the water. We then hear the first cry of the cicadas. Now, I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, so I had no idea what a cicada was, but at some point in my childhood, I understood that it meant summers in Japan. Just gathered that from watching enough anime, I suppose, but at the time, I was like, what is this weird? I didn't even know it was a bug, honestly. I was like, this is a weird noise. As we hear the cicadas crying, we see an entire line of UN tanks just pointing, and we're thinking, yeah, here we go, baby. We then hear a voice from a loudspeaker telling us there's a state of emergency in the surrounding areas. And as we pan over some different shots of the city, we notice a car driving down the road. And from the inside of the car, we hear that somebody has lost him. We cut from this person complaining about losing him to a brown-haired character on a payphone. Now, for anyone born after the year 2000, a payphone is like a cell phone, but it's stuck to a building and you have to put money into it in order to talk to somebody. Anyway, now that I feel old. The phone tells our character that the lines are down due to the state of emergency, and as he complains about that, he pulls out a photo of a woman with some notes written on it. Now, if your version of the series doesn't tell you what any of that kanji says, let me just translate it for you here. It says, Shinji, I'll be picking you up. Check this out, with an arrow pointing into her cleavage. As we're staring at these photos, the earth is shaking and birds are flying away, and we realize that this kid is way too close to where this giant creature is walking. We suddenly smash cut to some dude in glasses who says, the angels are back. In comes our title page, Angel Attack, and now we have a name for whatever this giant creature is. We smash back to this giant creature that we're now going to call an angel, and it is getting shot at by all of these weird helicopter things, and we get some of the most bombastic, fun music just immediately, right out of the gates. And right as all these explosions start going off and we remember that there's a kid right here, the blue car pulls up, shielding him from one of the explosions, and it opens with the woman saying, get in. We cut back and get a pan of the command center, I'm going to call it, and we see these generals who are talking about how the Angel is on its way to Tokyo 3 and they need to hit it with everything they've got. And then we see the glasses guy again, and he's talking about how conventional weapons don't work against the Angels. Back to our characters in the blue car, the woman shouts that they're going to use an N2 mine because everyone flies away, I guess, and then she jumps on to shield the child as the nuclear explosion goes off nearby. Don't worry, it's just gonna blow the car off the road and then they're gonna have to roll it back over. They'll be fine. But as soon as they get it rolled over, our characters introduce each other. We got Shinji on the one side and Miss Katsuragi, who corrects Shinji to call her Misato. Back in the command center, we get a pretty quick visual that tells us that the angel was not destroyed by that N2 mine. And the generals also call the angel a demon, which makes a lot more sense to me. Back with our friends in the blue car, Misato makes a call to make sure that everything's ready up ahead. And then we get a little bit of slapstick as she's more concerned about her outfit being ruined than the apparent giant angel monster that is coming to kill everyone. Back in the command center, the generals are yelling at the man in the glasses, and we learn that his name is Ikari. And after confessing that regular weapons just aren't going to cut it, the generals give him control and descend on this little elevator. Ikari announces that he wants to activate something called Unit 1. Back with our car friends, Shinji's asking if they're going to see his father, and he doesn't seem really excited about it, and before we can get too deep into that, they suddenly see this huge expanse, and we learn that it's called a geofront. And we see this giant lake, there's a pyramid, there's towers, the thing's just freaking huge. And it's so big, we smash cut to our characters being lost and not knowing where they're going. And before we even notice that our characters are that lost, we see another character taking off scuba gear, wondering where Misato is and thinking that she must be lost again. The blonde with the scuba gear eventually meets up with Misato and Shinji and starts going around with them and talking about all sorts of business jargon. And then suddenly the lights go out. And when the lights come back on, Shinji screams. He is now face to face with some sort of giant robot face. The blonde in the doctor getup tells him that it's not a robot, that it's an Evangelion. Looking down on the three, we see Ikari, the grumpy glasses guy, and find out that he is Shinji's dad. And he is telling Shinji that he needs to pilot this Evangelion. Shinji's yelling at his father that he didn't want him and that he can't do this, and then we get interrupted with shaking as we are reminded there's a giant angel outside that is going to try to kill us all. Shinji refuses to pilot, and they call for Rei to come out and do it. And we get a little monologue from Shinji about how, well, obviously he isn't needed, they could have done it on their own, why did they even call him? But a girl is wheeled in on a gurney, a hospital gurney, with an IV bag and everything, and as Shinji sees her and sort of the state she's in, we get another blast, this time closer, that actually shakes the lights loose. And as the lights are falling down, the hand of the Evangelion robot blocks the lights from crushing Shinji. And as we're sitting there with Shinji holding Rei, and the blonde doctor saying that's impossible, it couldn't have happened, and Misato saying, why did it move? To protect him? You think it moved to protect him? Shinji looks at his hands, sees blood that is not his, and says he will do it, he will pilot it. He will pilot the Eva. And with that, Nerve snaps into action. Machines are whirring, water's draining. Shinji gets into the cockpit and they move him over to a cool elevator thing and they launch him up to the street level to fight the angel. And the street itself opens up and the Evangelion flies up, and now we've got the Evangelion face to face with this giant angel. Now, if you're watching the Netflix version, I recommend you go on to YouTube and you Google Fly Me to the Moon Evangelion outro, and you just watch it once through just so you can get a feel for what it was like to end the series each time when we were originally watching this. Now, back when we were renting the VHS, there were 2 episodes on it, so we had 2 episodes to watch to determine if we wanted to keep going. But in the modern streaming world where you're going to be watching the first episode and making a decision, what do you think? What are the mysteries that you have? What are the questions you want answers to? Are you going to keep watching the series after this first episode? So let's take a look at what our different mysteries are that we've come up with here. Number 1 mystery. The first mystery or question that we're looking at is, what is an angel? Angels, messengers from God. Why is it a giant towering creature? And what is it doing in Tokyo 3? Question 2. Why Tokyo 3? What happened to Tokyos 1 and 2? Are they underwater? Why are they underwater? why is everything destroyed? Unlike other series that involve giant robots like Gundam, we have this agency that appears to be sort of above or like next to, or somehow they are more powerful than the military, but they still wait for the military to give them control. So like, what is going on politically as far as like the military and nerve and who's in control, and how does this balance work? And sort of the final question we get right at the end of this episode is, why would piloting an Eva leave you hurt? So are these questions enough for you to keep going? They were enough for me to keep going as a kid, and that was before knowing how influential Evangelion was going to be. Plus, again, we had 2 episodes on the VHS, and when you spend good money on renting that VHS, you're not going to stop watching it after the first episode unless it was just so, like, it's got to be a really bad show for you to get 2 episodes on a VHS that you paid for and you only watch one of them. No. Back in the day, you always finished the VHS and made the decision after that if you would rent the next one. Thank you so much for watching this little taste of the Evangelion Manifesto. After recording just half of the first script, I have over 7 hours of raw footage to get through, and I wanted to put something out while we're still technically in the holiday season. Let me know in the comments if you prefer this episode-by-episode style of description and breakdown, or if you'd prefer just a single full big video. It's been great going through what it was like the first time I watched Evangelion, and I can't wait until we talk about how your experience with the show changes when you rewatch the series. I'll catch you in the next one. Kampai.